For the 3 months initially, he was like in his best behavior. He, um, opening the doors for me, whether it's the car or a restaurant, whatever, um, being, nice to me and my family. But then I was so naive. I didn't even look at the red flags. I didn't identify the red flags. When we got married and I kind of moved in with him, that's when I realized that, you know what, he's a totally different person to what I assumed he is. And initially, I was in a state of shock. I didn't even know how to respond or react. You get emotionally numb. And I just tried to justify everything, give explanations, and give meanings to everything he said and did. Like the first week of marriage, he started to show his like real face, highly aggressive, moody, throwing tantrums like a child, like my way or the highway. And I noticed that he doesn't like the word no. It's like he's never heard the word no. I want this. I want this right now. If you dare say no, that's it. Boom. I'd studied psychology. I knew this is not normal behavior. This guy needs anger management help. He needs counseling. But every time I pointed that out, he would just shut me up saying, "There's nothing wrong with me. You're the one who needs help." He was the type of person who was always in denial. If he did something wrong or made a mistake or did something that he shouldn't, it's like he didn't have remorse. He didn't have any conscience, you can say. And he would like blame everyone and everything. So I remember one day I finished praying Salah, and he goes, "You know what? Before I got married, I never used to pray Salah regularly, but after I got married to you, I started praying Salah." And I was like, "Yeah, that's good. That's what I want you to do. Get closer to Allah. That's the whole purpose of getting married, and this is what I want from my husband, to pray regularly and rest of it." And he was like, "Well, before I got married to you and I didn't pray regularly, life was pretty easy. Everything was nice and I didn't have any problems. Now that I've started praying Salah, I've got so many problems and I've lost my job and this." And it's like, you can't blame Allah for that, because you lost your job because you did something wrong and your employer found out and he sacked you. But like I said, he was in a state of denial the whole time. And I was thinking, this guy's not looking for a job. He doesn't seem to be serious. And then every time I said something, he would be like, "You know what? You're more educated than I am. Why don't you work and I stay at home?" And I was like, that's not how it works. Definitely not in Islam. And at that time, I didn't realize that that's part of the control, you know? And there was a lot of involvement from other people who were not even related, but they interfered a lot. I was living in an extended family where it was him, his father, his stepmother, and an auntie for good 18 years. So she had a lot of influence on everyone. And then she made it clear that not to allow your wife to go out alone. Make sure you go with her. Don't allow her to drive a car. She shouldn't wear trousers because women who wear trousers, they are characterless. Parents, in the sense, wear this, meet that person, don't meet that person, cook this, don't cook that. I felt like I have lost my identity completely. And I'm just like a puppet, and my strings are in these people's hands. So I can't even breathe without them giving me the permission to do so. No privacy at all. The downstairs toilet didn't have a lock. I couldn't visit my friends or family unless he comes along. So I went to meet my friends, all females. Then my husband is with me. That was really embarrassing and awkward. I just made excuses for him that, oh, he's bored at home, so he wanted to come along, or he really enjoys our company, so, And most people, they didn't even consider it as a warning. They just thought, okay, he's a friendly guy, he wants to come, so what? If my sisters, he would come along. If my sisters called me, I wasn't allowed to just speak to them unless I put the phone on speaker. If I received a text message, he would read that first. If I was checking my email to know what exactly I'm reading, who I'm communicating with, and then one day we had an argument on that he should have all the passwords. Hold on, why should I give my password for my email addresses and Facebook, what have you, to you? friends, they might want to share something that they're not comfortable with my husband reading it. And he was like, well, then tell your friends not to share anything that your husband can't see. I remember we had an argument, and I tried to leave the room, and he just shut the door of the room. But he was a big guy. Now, if he's pushing the door, surely I can't open it myself because he's put so much force. And then he grabbed my arm and he pinched me on the wall really bad. I just went to bed straight away. I didn't speak with him. I didn't realize at that time that he's got a controlling behavior. I knew he's got issues with anger management. But then he would do something or say something or throw something at me, and then the next day he would apologize. He would hold my feet and go, sorry, 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 sorry. And he wouldn't stop saying sorry until I would tell him, okay, fine, it's okay, I forgive you. But then he would repeat the same thing again. So it was like a cycle. And it took me good 1 year to realize it was affecting my health. So I was having migraines on a regular basis. I was throwing up because of that, lost my appetite. My weight became 34 kg. And I was going to the A&E quite frequently, something I've never done in my life. I mean, in my entire life, this is before I got married, I think I only went to A&E once because I kind of, as a child, I was playing and I fell. Apart from that, I don't remember going to the A&E ever. But after I got married, I was going to the A&E like you go to the park. So sometimes I had something, sometimes I had like one bruise. So GPs are not stupid. Yeah. And at least my GP was not stupid at all. So one day she was like, okay, what's happening? How did this happen? And I just broke down. And luckily I was alone because even going to the GP was monitored. I could not go to the GP alone unless my husband comes inside. Luckily that day he didn't come inside. He had to go somewhere, something. So I think my ex-father-in-law, he dropped me outside the clinic. So that 5-minute GP appointment turned into a 45-minute GP appointment. She said to me, you're an educated girl. This is 21st century. Why are you tolerating all this? I kind of confided in her. I was happy that someone's listening, and she's gonna keep everything confidential. She's not gonna disclose it to anyone. I felt safe with her. She was like, you need to understand that he's not gonna change. And she's like, how many years has it been? I said, no, over 3 years. And she's like, well, he's not gonna change. Things are getting from bad to worse. It's affecting your physical and mental health. What do you want? Do you want to end up in a hospital bed with a nervous breakdown? Is that what you want? And I was like, no. She's like, so why don't you just tell your family, tell your, loved ones, and just get out of this relationship? And I was like, well, in my family, no one has ever got a divorce. I'll be the first one. And my parents will be really upset. My dad, he's got heart problems. He might not even survive. He'll probably have a heart attack if he hears this. And she was like, nobody's going to die. Nobody's going to have a heart attack. Parents are happy to see their child happy. But if the child is not happy, no parent is going to feel great about that. That really made me think. She was like, if he ever does something to you, if he hits you again, or he gets aggressive, or you feel unsafe, she said, just come to me, or you go to the A&E and we'll look after you. We'll provide you with everything. And she suggested that I should keep a bag with my valuables, with my essential documents, so that if God forbid something happens, I can just grab that bag and run. So I went home, I thought over it, and of course, I prayed every single day. I trusted in Allah, I still do, I always will. And my faith, alhamdulillah, stayed strong throughout this. And I think the only reason I feel I survived everything is because of my faith, because I knew even if the whole world is against me, I have Allah on my side. And as long as I'm not the oppressor, I'm the oppressed one, Allah is going to help me. He's going to support me. But then there were times I questioned myself whether being patient in this relationship is going to do good, or am I suffering, injustice and keeping quiet about it and giving more courage and strength to the perpetrator. And I was like, is this what Islam is all about? You talk about patience, but patience surely doesn't mean that you should suffer in silence or the perpetrator to continue the abuse. That's nowhere near Islam. That's not what I learned. So I was praying, I was asking Allah to help me find a way, because I didn't know how to tell my family. And with friends, like I said, I never had a chance to kind of sit with them and open up as such because my phones were monitored, everything was monitored. I never met them alone. Even when I traveled back home to meet my parents, the first time I traveled after marriage, he came along and he stayed in my house. So there was no privacy. So I couldn't even like speak to my parents. They were very observant and they could tell something's not right. His behavior, his attitude, his short temper, he snaps. He doesn't even see that the person in front of him is an elderly or a child. He's just rude and obnoxious and stubborn, doesn't have respect for elders or, compassion for younger ones. Taking money out from your wife's purse. And he did that once, and my mom saw it, and my mom was really upset. She was like, "Why is he taking money out from your purse?" And obviously, I had to cover up by making up an excuse. And even if his father needed money, he would send his son to ask me for it. 3 years, I reached a point where I was like, you know what? Every day I question myself, shall I stay? Shall I leave? Every single day I ask this to myself, shall I stay? Because I had lost trust for this person. I had lost respect for this person. There was no love because from day one he treated me like I'm nothing. And he even said to me once when I questioned him, I was like, before you got married, you were in your best behavior and you never raised your voice or throw things at me or anything. Like, what's gone into you? And he was like, well, before I got married to you, I had to be in my best behavior. But now that you are my property, I don't have to pretend to be anyone else. So I can just be myself. It wasn't just him, but even his family. They never kind of supported me, brought him up as a child who gets everything he wants there and then. So the child grew up not hearing the word no. So he thought if I could get away with everything with my parents, surely I can get away with everything with my wife too, because that's the kind of upbringing he had. He didn't have family values or, moral values or anything. Um, he wanted to know everything about me, but when it came to his things, everything was a secret. On Facebook, I was on limited profile. I couldn't see his profile. I was not allowed to touch his phone. His phone had a password. He didn't share anything with me. It was okay for him to keep secrets, hide things. Sometimes he would come home after 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would question him. I was like, "Where were you all this time?" And he would be like, "Oh, I was working." Like, come on, what office is open at 3 a.m.? He kind of got away with everything. So, say for example, if I went out for grocery shopping with his mother, I would be carrying all the heavy grocery bags, and he wouldn't help me. When I used to come home and I would ring the bell or call him and say, okay, can you help me with the bags to carry them upstairs? And he would go into the toilet, sit there for a good 1 hour saying, I'm in the toilet. So he doesn't have to carry it. And I would be struggling to carry like heavy bags, grocery shopping for his mother and all. So even in the house, he wouldn't help me with any chores. It was just like, make me tea, get me that, make me breakfast, lunch. Then he would have his guests over, like his family and friends and relatives, what have you. And then I would be in the kitchen 24/7, preparing 5 different meals for everyone. So forget about all the degrees and all the education that I worked hard for. I was just like inside the four walls of the house, just serving them. He used to shout at me and throw things at me inside the house, but then he started doing the same thing outside in public. Started volunteering, and I was getting late for work. And he was like in the toilet taking ages. So I thought, you know what, I'll just take the bus. And I'm waiting at the bus stop, and there he comes in his car. And he starts shouting at me from inside of his car. And you could see that everyone around me is watching, everyone's listening, but he wouldn't care. It would be quite embarrassing for me, quite insulting. So yeah, finally, then one day, I think I was lucky he wasn't at home. My sister called, and I was speaking to her, and I just told her. I told her what he did, like the night before, and I told her that I've got a bruise on my arm. She was like, tell your GP. So because he was away for a week, I thought, okay, maybe Allah has made a path for me. I went to the GP. I showed her the bruise, and she asked me how it happened, why it happened. Then she gave me a whole list of names and contact details of organizations that help victims of domestic abuse. Now, when I was in uni, I studied abuse as a module. But never in my dreams I thought that one day I will be in an abusive relationship. Something that I never thought would happen to me. I thought it just happens with people who are not educated enough and, belong to a certain group of people who are ignorant. But it was happening with me and I didn't even realize it. I wasn't sure how to contact these organizations because there was someone always at home. I was never left at home alone. There would be someone always at home. One day I got a call from National Center for Domestic Violence, yeah. And I was in a grocery store at the time with my mother-in-law. They were very clever. They asked me questions and I was just giving them like yes, no answers. And they were like, you can call us anytime you want. If you don't have a place to live, we can arrange for a refuge. If you feel unsafe or threatened, you can always call the police. Now, about the police, I had this misconception because that's what my ex told me, that if you ever call the police, one, they'll never come. Two, even if they do come, they won't believe you because you can't prove anything. And when somebody like hits you on the head, you can't really show bruises because your hair, your hijab, whatever covers it. And I believed him. But then thanks to the police, they actually did help me a lot. I took the opportunity and my sister came over. So I went with them, grabbed my laptop and rest of it. My sister took me to the solicitor, told the solicitor everything. Solicitor was asking me questions. And then she goes, I'm going to send a divorce petition right away. This is it. You're not going back. It's not happening. And then rest of the family found out and everybody was furious and they were like, you are definitely not going back. Said that this was happening for so many years and we didn't even know. After sending the divorce petition, when he received it, he had the shock of his life because he genuinely believed I'm gonna stay with him for the rest of my life and give in. There's this misconception that if you're kind of religious, then you'll never get a divorce because divorce is highly disliked in Islam. But it's disliked, it's not haram. I told the police what's happened. And the police said, well, we're going to go and arrest him. We're informing you, we're not asking you. But yeah, the police constable was very friendly, very supportive. He went and he arrested him. But then unfortunately, he wasn't prosecuted because I didn't have sufficient evidence and witnesses. So I got the legal divorce within 3 months on grounds of domestic abuse. But in terms of Islamic divorce, that was a real struggle that I did for good 3 years after leaving him because no one would grant me divorce because everybody was like, no, he must agree to it. We should have his permission. And then he would approach all the mosques and the Islamic centers saying that, oh, I really love my wife. I want her back and I'll do anything for her. And if she wants me to go for counseling, I'll go for counseling. I'll get a separate house. That nothing of that sort is going to happen. He's just going to get back. So I blocked his number, changed my SIM for a few months. I didn't step outside my sister's house. I just stayed indoors because I was so fearful of my life. Because I know that he's angry, he's furious, so he'll do anything to hurt me or harm me. So I was like, better stay indoors. In the end, after 3 years, I finally came across a sheikh who was very understanding, very supportive. And he granted the Islamic divorce. I consider myself really lucky. I chose not to have children because I always believe that if a man who doesn't respect his own mother, because he once hit his mother as well with a hockey stick, a man who doesn't respect his parents, his mother, his wife, I don't see him becoming a very good father. And my children surely deserve better than that. My children deserve a father who's kind, who's respectful, who fears Allah, if nothing else. So alhamdulillah, didn't have kids. Otherwise, God knows what would have happened. It's been, I think, how many years? I've lost count. 8 years, 7, 8 years, or more. Alhamdulillah, it took a while to come out of my shell because I was so scared. I was having nightmares even after leaving him. I used to get scared every time I saw a car that was similar to his. At that time, I didn't realize, but then later on, I found out that I was post-traumatic stress that I was experiencing. I went for counseling, not sure if I should go, but then I thought there's no harm. So I went for it, and that was quite eye-opening. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about things that I was experiencing after leaving that relationship, and also why I reacted, or I was having migraines, for example, or why I was losing weight in that during that time because I was stressed out, I was worried about it, and I didn't know how to cope. So my body was kind of reacting to all the stresses. Alhamdulillah, I feel safe now. Lucky to be alive and safe, Alhamdulillah. Because with him, it was like walking on eggshells. I never felt safe in that so-called home. They say home is where the heart is. In my case, heart was never at ease. I felt safer when I stepped outside, but inside the four walls, I never felt safe. Although I gave my 110% in that relationship, I did my best. I took care of his parents, his family, like my own. But in return, I didn't get that respect, that love, that acknowledgement, appreciation. It was a lot. There was a lot of negativity, and you can see that. Say, for example, my ex-mother-in-law was abused by her ex-partner, and her father was also abusive. So she kind of got used to that kind of pattern that men are abusive, men are domineering, and women are meant to be submissive, and most men are like that. Although I came from a family where men respect women, men don't even raise their voice in front of a woman. So for me, it was a shock. And I remember I once told her that maybe your understanding of a man is different from my one because you've come from a background where this is how men treat women. And I know she wasn't happy to hear that. But then she chose to live in that kind of relationship. One, she wasn't strong enough to get out of it. Two, she was in a state of denial because that was her coping mechanism. So she thought, just go for shopping and you'll feel better. But for me, finding peace and contentment in material things was not key to finding happiness. And I knew that I deserved better and that Allah didn't create me to waste my life being abused mentally, physically, financially. Definitely Allah has a bigger and better purpose for me. And I'm not going to waste that by living in an unhappy relationship with a fake smile, trying to keep a brave face when internally I'm kind of dying and I don't even see the purpose of life anymore. Surely Islam is all about being positive and optimistic. And in this house or in this relationship, even my faith is at stake because there were times that I couldn't practice my faith because they wouldn't let me. So, for example, they knew before I got married that I wear hijab, but then after I got married, they would be like, "Oh, you should wear your jewelry. We gave you jewelry so that you can show the people." The whole culture, everything was so un-Islamic, and they say that you get married so that you can strengthen your faith, you can complete your faith. But then if you're in a relationship where you feel that your faith is on stake, and instead of growing spiritually stronger, you're becoming weaker, then I don't think it's a good idea to stay in such a relationship. Because I think your relationship with Allah is far more important than any other relationship on earth. So I'm really glad I made the right decision. I don't regret it. And I'm not going to beat myself up because I was naive. I didn't understand manipulation. I didn't understand what perpetrators do to get hold of their victims. 6-7 years later, I have discovered that he was a narcissist. And I'm a very empathic person. I like to give. And he just took advantage of that she's a very giving person. And all he did was take. Took me a long time to understand, but alhamdulillah, I am where I am now, and I thank Allah for that. And it's like Allah's given me a new life.
I don't give up easily, but this is making it hard to breathe. This fighting world's forgotten peace, set ablaze by fear and deceit. I'm as strong as I can be, and I'm trying to see clearly through all these blurring tears. I see the smoke is getting near. Fire, this world is on fire. Fire, this world is on fire, fire. Won't you put out the flame?